Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another post-game show here at the Hockey Writers. We just finished the Calgary Flames Edmonton Oilers Battle of Alberta first game. It ended 9-6. It's my gosh, it's like we're back in the 80s or something. I mean, goal after goal, offense galore. I'm joined in by Jim Parsons, who covers the Oilers, Kyle Knopp, Morning Skate, a bunch of NHL teams. So he'll cover the Flames on this one. Jim, I mean, this game, and we talked about in the preview, we don't know what it would be. Looks like it's going to be all offense, at least from game one.
Well, I love how you introduced me as a guy who covers the Oilers, because what I just watched was not the Oilers. Like, that's the last 25 to 30 games of the season. That was not the team that was playing the regular season, except for one game where they lost 9-5 to the Calgary Flames. This was that game. And I said it in our video prior to this, when we talked about keys to the series and we did the preview of this series. I said the Oilers cannot get caught up in another game like that. They cannot have a repeat performance of that where they get out of their head. They're in there playing Calgary. They're going, okay, let's play Calgary. Let's do it. Get completely out of their system. What do? They what a crazy talk. Oh my God. I don't even know. Highs, lows, it's stupid. Just insanely. One thing you don't want to do, the Oilers did it. And they were on pace. Calgary was on pace for 60 friggin' shots. That's how bad the first period was for the Edmonton Oilers. They scored twice in the first 50 seconds. Mike Smith gets 3 goals on 10 shots. He's gone. I mean, just insanely not Oilers hockey. Not the way they were winning, not the way they finished the regular season, not the game they needed to play to start the series off. I don't know. I mean, there's some positives to take out of it, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, but this was not the Oilers that I had watched the last 25 games of the season.
Yeah, well, on the other hand, Kyle, the Flames, that's not the Flames either. I mean, allowing 6 goals, and we'll talk about this in the next segment, but allowing 6 goals. So what was your impressions of this game from the Flames side?
It was crazy, and I think Markstrom really was just not his usual self. We saw in the last series, he went toe to toe with Ottinger, and, Ottinger, everyone's been talking about him, being the belle of the ball coming to the playoffs and really, stepping out of that first round untarnished, even though his team was beat. Markstrom hung in there the first round with him toe to toe. He was putting up the same type of numbers. And today it is not even close. I mean, there were so many soft goals against Markstrom that, he definitely wanted back. He had a 786 save percentage, which is just awful. And not something you expect out of a Vezina caliber goaltender. And so he needs to tighten that up. Otherwise, I thought the Flames played a pretty decent game. They only had 8 giveaways, which is pretty solid compared to Edmonton's 20. So they played all right. Markstrom needs to definitely tighten things up. But yeah, it's going to be an entertaining series.
Yeah, the Flames played the game they wanted to. They played the game they wanted to. They just didn't get their backup from Markstrom, which won't happen again. There will not be another game like that. So the Oilers can't rely on that, right? So the Oilers were out of sorts, and Calgary played the game they wanted to, and this is what you get.
Yeah, they played exactly. Edmonton played exactly into Calgary's hand. They were ready to come out with a run and gun style, expecting Markstrom to outplay Smith, and instead, all 3 goaltenders played like they, could barely stop a beach ball. So we'll see what happens. But I think you're absolutely right. I don't think we're getting a Markstrom like that again this series.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think, we'll go into the next part. Here's the storylines that have come out of this series already, and definitely not the goaltending. It's Markstrom's hasn't. Oilers have shown that they can score on him, so he's not in their head at all. Vezina Trophy finalist, but you won't see that again, like you said, Jim. I mean, I think he's going to bounce back in the next game. Any other storylines you're seeing already coming out of this series and just from game one?
If I may, I want to say special teams is kind of emerging as going to be a big storyline. The Flames were 1 for 3 on the power play, and the Oilers were 0 for 4, and they had 2 big power plays in that third period that they really needed to convert on, and they weren't able to, and that really kept them from getting back into the game.
Yeah, when I say this is not the Oilers team that I'm used to watching, the power play was a perfect example of that. That was horrid. That was maybe the worst I think I've seen.
I don't think they put
play.
together 3 passes.
No, they never got sustained zone time at all. Connor McDavid made a couple rushes and he did some solo stuff, but they never had any sustained time in the zone. And Calgary was really super aggressive on them. And you could tell, like, Draisaitl typically gets in that zone and then sets one up and drops it back to the defenseman. That never happened. Now, one time in 4 power plays, they never had a shot. They just didn't. That was not the power. And the Oilers have one of the best power plays in the league. And in the first series against the Kings, they used it to their advantage. And it was a weapon for them. It was not a weapon tonight. And so certainly not normal Oilers stuff. They're going to have to figure that out, because if Calgary's got that number on them, that is no longer a weapon for the Oilers, which they would need to win the series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially on that final power play of the game, that's desperation mode right there for the Oilers. And that's when you see them usually play at their best. And they had 1 shot, and that was from Duncan Keith with like 1 second left. And no one was even in front of Markstrom at that point. So can't have that.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Storyline wise for me, though, I agree with you, Matthew, that the Oilers aren't worried about Markstrom. I think they know that they can come back. If anything out of this game, if there's a silver lining here, it's that the Oilers are never out of it. They were down 5-1, right? They should not have been in this game. Like, there was no way they should have even been competitive. But somehow they tied it up in the third period, 6-6. Like, they let it slip away, and the Oilers have a tendency to sometimes do that. They'll score, and then the momentum killer just comes right after it, where the Flames score again. And that play, by the way, with the penalty box thing, I understand the rule. I don't know why it exists.
Yeah.
Like with Matthew Tkachuk came out of the box on that coincidental minor. I don't understand why that rule is a rule. And I'm not suggesting it was why the Oilers lost this game, because they lost this game in the first 5 minutes. But like, that's such a weird rule.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it if maybe there's, already a guy in the box and then you get 2 penalties called, behind the play or something on the penalty kill, but to have 1 already be called and then the other 2 taken as coincidentals, like, I thought that automatically made those 2 a wash, and then or else it should have been a 4-on-3, which it wasn't. So I think you're absolutely right, Jim. I think that that was a little suspect as to why it's written that way, but good on the Flames for using it to their advantage. Unfortunately,
well, I'm pretty sure it wound up being the game winner, didn't it? Didn't Tkachuk come out and make that 7-6?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, whatever, but still, like, it's certainly it did not help.
No,
not at all.
And
the Flames knew, right? The Flames were aware that the rule was when you get those coincidental minors, you get to choose who comes out first, and they specifically chose Tkachuk. So they knew it was going to be their advantage to do it, and good for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was smart from their coaching staff, and that's part of the game within the game, and I think you're going to see a lot of that this series.
Yeah, well, I mean, bright side for both teams. Their stars came to play. So Matthew Tkachuk had the hat trick. Connor McDavid 4 points, I believe he ended at. So McDavid was flying all night. 5 points. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, you're right. 4.
Yeah,
or was it 4? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was right the first time.
Sorry.
Draisaitl as well. I mean, he looked pretty good despite being. I don't know, Jim. Did he look 100% or
no? Not early on. No. I mean, he didn't look 100% except for that one play where he scored, where he had that dash of speed that I'm like, holy crap, where did that come from? Because he had not had that all game. And the first shift, he did not look like his normal self. And you could tell he was laboring and he was whatever. That's one of the problems for the Oilers that they're going to have to deal with all series, is that if they get behind like this, he's going to have to play. And if he's going to have to play, then all of a sudden you can't manage his minutes. You're overextending him. You're risking further injury. I mean, he looked pretty good when he had to be really, really good, but I think that's a false sense of how healthy he is. I don't think he's even remotely himself. I'd be shocked if he's in 50% of himself, but he did look good on that one rush where he scored. But outside of that, I thought Draisaitl was clearly laboring.
Yeah. And Evander Kane, he had such a good first series in the first round, and got into a bit of a that chirping match in the penalty box with Tkachuk, who obviously had the last laugh. But and it was chippy at the end, which is expected. Lots of fights, wrestling at the end of the game. So
I gotta say,
it's going to carry over. Like we said, it's going to be physical.
Yeah, I don't mind that for Evander Kane, actually. Like, he was maybe one of the few Oilers that seemed really engaged tonight. Now, Connor McDavid was engaged. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
But he was taking a crap kicking. Like, he took 3 major hits in that first period, which should not have happened. And Kane was kind of the only guy that was in there mixing it up, willing to go, trying to fight. Like, he was going to square up with Lucic. Like, there's a guy that maybe he's not mismatched because it's heavyweight versus kind of a middleweight, but Kane's pretty tough. Like, but was one of the few guys tonight. And I said, as I was watching the game, I'm like, the Oilers should be embarrassed if they can't figure out a way to motivate themselves when McDavid's taking a beating like that, to come back out and go, okay, this is enough. Right. And Kane to me was the only guy that did it. So he didn't score, and he wasn't necessarily his offensive self like he was against the Kings, but he was engaged, and that's important. Good. Yeah. Right. That's important. If he's not, nobody else will be. And maybe the Oilers will wake up at the end of that scrum at the end of the third there. Maybe that's what they need to come out and go, okay, come on, you guys, let's go.
Yeah. So looking ahead to the next game, obviously we talked about that both teams. Daryl Sutter didn't look very happy on the bench at the end there, even though his team's going to win. Both coaches are going to be looking at, they mentioned during the broadcast that, how much of this do you throw into the garbage can and just move forward? Jim, what do you think the Oilers need to, there's obviously a lot of stuff they need to do better, but what is the main thing that they need to do better in the next game?
Well, they got to stay within the system that works for them. Like, Woodcroft has put together a pretty good system, harping on the details. None of those details were there tonight, right? Everything that has worked for them since he took over as kind of the bench boss, they threw out the window almost immediately. Like, I honestly believe, and it shouldn't be, because Duncan Keith and Mike Smith got lots of experience, but everybody was overwhelmed. They were over emotional. It was just it was Calgary. It was the Battle of Alberta. It was the second round playoff series. It was clear that these guys were out of sorts early, and they have got to not do that. Like, this has got to be a way to settle themselves in. Remember why they were winning all those games. They were one of the hottest teams towards the end of the regular season, and they've got to get that back, because they can beat this team. They just can't do it if they play like that. And that's completely away from the Nurse and Ceci were -3. They were clearly the worst defenseman on the ice for me today. And I didn't think the blue line for the Oilers was very good at all. They just didn't, even though those were the only two guys who were really bad minus people, they have got to figure out a way to just settle in, to limit some of those shots, and just kind of play their game, right? If they can do that, they'll be okay. I expect a much better effort for game 2.
Yeah. Kyle, on the Calgary side, obviously they allowed 6 goals. I don't think Daryl Sutter likes that one bit. What do you think the Flames need to do better to limit that in game 2?
Honestly, I think they just need to keep their swagger and their urgency that they had coming into this game. They set the record, the NHL record for the fastest 2 goals in a playoff series or playoff game. Lindholm and Mangiapane scoring within 51 seconds, back-to-back goals. So they just came out with a lot of urgency, and they need to keep that foot on the gas throughout the series, especially at home. Use that crowd to their advantage. And like Jim said, they saw that the Oilers seemed a little overwhelmed being there, and they took it right to them. And if they can continue to do that and get them on their heels early, it's much easier to play with the lead when Markstrom's playing like Markstrom than it is trying to come from behind against a high-powered offense like the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, both goaltenders have to be better. Whoever's in net for the Oilers, and of course Markstrom. So we'll see what happens in game 2. It should be fun. Game 1 was certainly fun for the fans to watch. Lots of goals. Everyone loves that, but both teams don't love that. So it's especially if you're on the losing side. Even if you're on the winning side, you don't want to be allowing those not many goals every game. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for joining us for another post-game show. We'll be here tomorrow for more post-game reaction. And so stay tuned to the YouTube channel for the next one up here.